Here with head football coach Jack Wright. Your first signing class is in the books. You took over here a few months back. You were here from 08 to 12 as the offensive coordinator, but now you're the new man in charge. We signed 36 on National Signing Day yesterday on February 5th. 14 of those kids in district. Out of that, 18 of those 36 was quality offensive, defensive linemen, including a local guy in Steve Holtz here from Senatobia. Just talk about the class as a whole.
The thing that I'm most excited about as the head coach is the fact that we were able to keep 14 really good football players from the old district to come to Northwest. That's something we really wanted to emphasize. Of course, we had an advantage. We've got 3 coaches on our staff that are from this district originally. So a lot of connections here, a lot of people that we have in common, a lot of relationships with the coaches that were already in place when we took the job here. So not a real surprise that that's the case, but just really proud that we were able to keep 14 really good players here close to home.
You had talked a lot about when kids came in for visits that, look, we're North Mississippi guys. A lot of us are familiar with this area. You know, we're not going to feed you anything. You know, that's not true. We're from here. We grew up here. How much of an impact does that have, the fact that those kids may realize that, hey, these guys really, they're staying here. They're not going to just bounce around jobs?
Well, we were honestly able to go into living rooms and sit down with families and give them a feel that they were going to be very comfortable with us because of some of the things you already just touched on. We're going to invest a lot in our players. Our coaching staff is going to be very heavily involved in the life of the guys that are on our roster. From academics, from a social standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, we want to be able to put our arm around these guys and encourage them when the time's right, and also be able to push those buttons and get the most out of them when that's time for that too.
Well, there's a lot of things that are floating around out there about our sanctions, and that was from the previous staff. We are on 3 years of sanctions. Right now, coming into 2014, we'll be on year 2 and year 3. Last year in year number 1 was no postseason, which it didn't affect us last year. But these next 2 years, it's from 55 roster spots now down to 50. That's the only sanctions there are. There's people out there saying, you know, we may lose games, or, you know, we're not eligible for postseason this year or next year. That's not true. The only hit that we have these next 2 years is 50 roster spots. How much does those 50 affect what you did this year as far as recruiting?
It made us hold back a little bit, quite honestly. I think the main thing that I realized is there's a lot of misinformation out there that as a coaching staff we had to address, especially here late in the game in recruiting. The only thing that we've lost is 5 roster spots. It doesn't affect any of our players' scholarship money. It doesn't affect our postseason chances, our chances to win a championship. It doesn't affect the fact that our games count or don't count. All of our games are going to count in the standings. So a lot of misinformation we had to fight there, but it was something that we were willing to do, and I think the kids that signed with us felt comfortable with the situation.
Signing day is pretty cutthroat. It's exciting. It's overblown, a lot of it, to be honest with you, but it's a big deal for the high school kids and the kids that are, you know, going on to 4-year schools as well. It's almost like a Christmas day, to be honest with you. There's always 2 or 3 kids that flip last minute or decide to come to your school or somewhere else. I'm sure that was again, you know, in the case with us this year. Without naming names, you know, I would say maybe roughly how many people did that, you know, for us this year?
I think we lost 3 on signing day that we were expecting to grab. That's not unusual. Quite honestly, it could have been more. You know, that morning when you wake up, you don't know what's going to happen. But we got a couple too, and I think that's just that's the card game you play on signing day. Is you just try to minimize the losses, and if you can get a guy to come with you late, you want those guys to be contributors.
We've already mentioned that there are 36 that we signed, 14 of those in district. Touching on the in district kids, last year we were one of the top teams in the NJCA in attendance average, actually number 2 for those that reported, so, you know, top 10. You know, how much do you talk about location and keeping these high school kids local? You know, we have Steve Holtz and there's many other guys. We have 14 that are local, whereas some of the other schools in the league only signed, you know, 5 or less that were, you know, in the old districts.
Yeah, you touched upon Steve Holtz. I'm really proud that he chose to come to Northwest. You got a kid that went to school right across the street, and we were able to convince him that you don't have to go very far in order to be able to get anything that you need. It's right here across the street. We've got a great coaching staff. It's a great school. We're going to be able to provide all of his needs just like anybody else 3 hours away might be able to do. So really proud that he came aboard. And the other guys too. we spent a lot of time in our district recruiting. Of course, we had to go to some other places to fill some needs, but most of our time was spent in our area. We invested heavily in the relationships with the other coaches, the high school coaches here. Spent a lot of time in homes with the kids from here, and it really was an emphasis because my connections are local. Coach Webster's connections are local. Coach Oakley's connections are from right here. Coach Parker is from Calhoun County. So a group of guys that really believe in the quality of football right around Senatobia and our campus.
You finalized your staff basically the first week of January. We're holding over on a couple coaches who had to finish up some assignments. Talk about the job they did and y'all staff did as a whole, throwing this whole thing together in a month.
I really can't be any happier with the effort. These guys worked relentlessly over the last month in order to finalize this class. And I think recruits felt the energy that those guys brought to the table. And again, couldn't be happier with those guys. I really think it was the key to signing the quality of class that we got.
Well, you always know that the times have changed when kids really pay attention to, okay, what uniform we're wearing this week, what helmet, what cleats, what pants, what's the facilities like, what's your field like, all that. We will be ordering new jerseys. We have ordered new jerseys for next year, a new white uniform top to bottom and a new blue uniform mixed in with the red ones we got last year. So we have several uniform combinations. Just got a new facility there at the football field, a concession stand, restrooms. We're talking about a new locker room, a new lockers, new floor. How much all of that does that play a factor? And do you feel like we rank in the top 3 or 4 as far as total package?
I think so. One of the things that we sell here as Northwest is you don't have to give up one thing to get another. We have a very balanced school. We've got unbelievable computer facilities here. Our classrooms are state-of-the-art. We've got a great faculty. We have plenty of things here to sell. Our cafeteria is wonderful. And so that is a strong selling point of ours, is to not have to give up anything to get another.
Going, I guess, to the final question, I don't want to go without talking about the 4 guys that were here last year that actually have signed or committed to 4-year senior schools. You have Darrell Lovelady with Hardin-Simmons, Orlandis Tolliver with Missouri Southern, Terrell White with UT Martin, and, of course, Taro Barney, the Penn State transfer in December. But the final question, you draw 3 of the more premier teams in the South this year on your schedule. Colin has been up there as well the last couple of years. But you draw in the season opener Jones County at home, then you go to Gulf Coast, and 3 games later you go to Hines. All those teams were ranked last year at some point in the season. It's never easy in the MACJC, the toughest league in America. You're not going to get any handouts in your first year here with that schedule. Just talk about, I guess, your excitement for getting the season started, and then, how can we compete again this year at Northwest?
I think it's safe to assume as a coach that when you go into this league, every year is going to be tough. It doesn't matter who you draw out of the North or the South. Every team's going to be gunning to win that week, and we're going to be the same way. We're going to compete absolutely as hard as we can. Our players are going to play hard. We're going to play all the way through the 4th quarter, and we're going to fight for every inch of the game. We just have to be able to finish games. We've got to get those guys in here, work them hard this summer, have a great summer in the weight room, get them where they are able to compete for the full 60 minutes. And we're just going to play as hard as we can. We're going to coach as hard as we can, and at the end of the year, we'll see where we wind up.
Last year, a very uncommon year. You weren't here. This is our 2nd losing season in the last 36 years. A lot of teams brag on that they've been good, 4, 5, 6 years. This is a winning tradition that spans over 4 decades now. Congratulations on being named the new head coach a few months back. Looking forward to you and the staff hitting the ground running, and just, everybody's ready for college football. Congrats on everybody who signed, and you can always learn more about Northwest Athletics at NWCCRangers.com and on Twitter. Jack, appreciate you visiting with us today, and best of luck with this signing class.
I couldn't be prouder to be here, Kevin. Thank you.